Hello, amazing human beings out there around the world. Hello, hundreds of thousands of you everywhere. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here. Let's dig into what's going on in this world. The U.S. empire continues to try and maintain our stranglehold on the earth. Thank you for being here. A lot of important news to get to. I'm going to get into the truth, the reality, the details you don't normally see, you almost never see about slave labor within the United States of America. I'm also going to get into how exactly some of the linguistic propaganda, pro-war propaganda, infiltrates and spreads through our media channels like heroin in the veins. Isn't that a nice analogy? I like to keep this as a family hour. You know, it's fun for the whole family to listen. Just like the heroin through the veins. I'm going to get into the details of our propaganda, our war propaganda, how it works. Also, we'll be doing. It'll be a theme here. I'll also be getting into how the anti-immigrant propaganda exactly works in our nation and so much more. But I need your help, though. The thing is, I need your help. Will you please hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, hit follow, hit share, leave a comment, even if you got nothing to say. Hello to everybody out there saying hi in the chat. Please keep doing that, because all that shit helps. It helps me fight the algorithm lords that have an ongoing vendetta against me, as you well know. All right, let's get into this, though. Let's not waste any time. Are you tired of live streams that waste time? Well, this isn't one of them. So, article in The Intercept with, and I thought this was important because it is first person explaining and detailing how the United States of America's prison slave labor works, what it's like. And this is important for multiple reasons, not just because you should care if people are being forced into slave labor in this fine country of ours, but also because of the moral righteousness that our country just exudes and speaks about constantly, about looking down on other countries and they're violating human rights and all of this shit about how much we stand for human rights. And here you have the U.S. using slave labor. Now, some of you may have known that this type of thing went on, but again, I think this is details you might not have had. This is over at The Intercept, but is written by a former prison, by a former prisoner, former incarcerated person of carceral person. It says, I worked in federal prison sweatshops for 23 cents an hour. 23 cents an hour. Prison labor is a staple of the American economy, whether it's fish farms or electronics recycling, woodworking, or vehicle remanufacturing. Our nation's supply chain is bolstered by a hidden labor force of overworked and underpaid incarcerated people. I would know. I was one of them, says the article. And just to remind you that our lovely Constitution, which has never gotten anything wrong and is perfect and can never be questioned, actually allows for slavery in the United States. Many people believe it ended slavery or something like that. No. It says that anyone who is imprisoned can be used for slavery. And we saw this aggressively used immediately after the Emancipation Proclamation. Immediately after that ended slavery, they basically switched it over to a prison state form of slavery. And back in that time, you could actually arrest black people for nothing. You just grab them off the street, put them in prison, and then the prisons would actually rent or lease them out to plantation owners so they could continue to have slavery. Now, I would say we've come a long way from that, but maybe not a long way. We've come a couple of steps away from that. The article continues, throughout my 13 years of incarceration, I held a prison job whenever possible, from the kitchen of the city jail in Bristol, Virginia, to the mess halls of federal prisons in West Virginia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. I worked. It wasn't until I worked at the Unicor factories in Butner, North Carolina, and Allenwood, Pennsylvania, where I was housed for a combined 5 years, that I made the connection between capitalism and captivity. So he's saying that although he worked in various ways throughout the prison system, it took him a while to realize that it wasn't an opportunity, right? Because that's how it's sold to them. It's told to the prisoners, this is an opportunity. If you want to work, then guess what? You will get privileges. You will get paid, even if it's 23 cents an hour. You will get out of your normal drudgery of the day-to-day of prison in the largest prison state the world has ever seen. That's right. For those of you new to my show, this is the largest prison state the world has ever seen, both in terms of numbers and in terms of per capita. The article continues, I tracked my hours, signed documents for vacation days, and strove to meet the quarterly and annual revenue targets displayed prominently on a digital bulletin board. I thought these experiences would one day help me find a good job on the outside. I was wrong. And he gets into this a little more, but that's one of the other things, is that these prisoners may work in a certain area. One of the most well-known ones, because even the mainstream media has covered this a little bit, is working as firefighters in California. California desperately needs firefighters, so they use prisoners. Those prisoners often make $1 an hour. It might even be less than that in some areas. But many of them believe, and maybe even are told, that this will help them get a job fighting fires, if that's what they want to do, because being a firefighter, once they get out of prison. And yet it's quite the opposite. For a long time, until I think they may have overturned this like last year or something, but for a long time, it was illegal for fire departments to hire ex-convicts. So therefore, they would get done fighting fires for California, risking their lives, being out there facing the fucking fiery Hades on a daily basis. And yet they get out of prison and they'd go to a fire department and they'd say, we can't fucking hire you. What are you, crazy? You're a convict. So there's many examples of where these prisoners cannot get the jobs they just been working in for years. Federal Prison Industries, now known by the trade name Unicor, was created in 1934 to provide incarcerated people with job readiness skills. The government-owned corporation now spans 7 different business segments and employs more than 17,000 people under the guise of reducing recidivism and providing training. Yeah, right. That's why they do it. That's absolutely why they need slave laborers, because they want to help those slaves. They're training them is what they're doing. Unicor extracts hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue from the incarcerated population that has been denied most workplace protections granted by our country's labor laws. Yeah, there's no labor laws when you're doing slave labor in prison. While Unicor primarily sells its goods to other federal agencies, which are often required to purchase them, it's been permitted to do business with the private sector since 2012. So this company literally does business with the private sector. It's not just for prisons. So it is a company that makes money, makes hundreds of millions of dollars, and gets these people to work as essentially slave laborers for pennies, often for 23 cents an hour. It's just, and this is viewed as legal and just and right. And there's no human rights abuses in the United States. No, China has slave labor. That's where they do the slave labor, is in the China. That's right. Not here. Fucking no, of course not. We're too good and just and free. At Unicor Office Furniture Group Factory, Jesus Christ, the Unicor Office Furniture Group Factory. There's a furniture factory staffed entirely by prisoners in Allenwood, Pennsylvania. We assembled chairs and lounge seating for as little as 23 cents per hour. They were then sold for as much as $3,000 a piece. $3,000 for a piece of furniture built by slave laborers who were working for 23 cents an hour. It would take years of dedicated employment at that factory to earn up to $1.15 per hour. So that was the top rate, $1.15 per an hour. And that was if you'd been there for years, fucking years. And I don't know if I need to remind everybody about why the vast majority of prisoners are in prison. It's easy for those of us who have had really no interaction with prison. You know, I'm very lucky. I've even though I've been arrested at some protests, they've never put me in prison. And I'm lucky in many other regards to not be personally acquainted with prisons. And I think a lot of people who have had that privilege in their life in this American prison state to have no connection really to prisons, we think, or many people think, that, oh, well, prisoners are in there for committing crimes, right? They did wrong. They are the bad guys. So what's wrong with paying them 23 cents an hour? They are evil, evil, bad people. And even if you don't think they're evil, you still think, well, they shouldn't have committed a crime if they didn't want to. Like, a lot of people think that. But you're ignoring so many things when you believe that. You're ignoring, first of all, just straight up innocent people, which is plenty. There are plenty of 100% innocent people in prison. Then you're ignoring all the people who may have, quote unquote, committed a crime, but the so-called crime that they were grabbed up for was things that are mainly just designed to get people into prison. Things like loitering, where you were standing in front of your own fucking apartment, but the cop decided to harass you and then decided to arrest you. Things like open alcoholic beverages, walking around with an open beer. First of all, should be legal. Secondly, that type of thing is only used to arrest mainly black people. These numbers are a few years old, so I don't know if it's gotten worse or better, probably worse. But in New York City, where they have thousands of arrests for open alcohol containers, only 4% were of white people. So they don't actually grab white people for open alcoholic beverages. They only grab black and Hispanic people for such a thing. So you have all of these kind of non-crimes that people get arrested for, and then they could end up being stuck in prison for a variety of reasons. It could be, I think, I could be slightly off. I'm not much off, but I think it was 63% of this nation's prisoners are actually pre-trial. Like the majority of prisoners. Some prisoners wait around for years for their trial to actually have been convicted. Well, yeah, innocent until proven guilty. Bullshit. Most of our system is guilty until proven guilty or guilty until proven innocent. But so you have millions of people. So what is it? It's over 2 million locked up altogether, but you have hundreds of thousands at any given time that are for nothing crimes or they're locked up for drug offenses that are essentially nothing, having a joint. In many states, that's still illegal. Fucking having one bump of cocaine, which what exactly was the grand harm that was going to cause? You were gonna have your eyes open a little bit more for the next 15 minutes, and they needed to arrest you because that guy's not blinking enough. Let's get him in prison. Anyway, William Talley, currently finishing his 20-year sentence at Allenwood Federal Prison, told me, "This is forced labor, plain and simple. This factory for me is the lesser of other evils." And this is a key point of how this prison slave labor works. Lesser of other evils, such as shoveling snow in the harsh Pennsylvania winter or scooping up geese poop in the hot summer sun. He compared our prison labor to sweatshops in other countries, adding, "What's worse is that I understand that I am part of American hypocrisy in action." Along with the ability to make triple the pay of a regular prison job, the maximum 125 an hour is the is triple pay. Unicor employment offered perks like eating first in the cafeteria and not being subject to lockdown when there was one, because the company wanted to keep making their money. So they wouldn't let you be locked down because they need their workers. More than 150 years after the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, except for as a punishment for a crime, prisons don't need to use physical force or coercion to ensure the continuation of a cheap and slave-like workforce. Chasing Unicor's promise of vocational training, many incarcerated people continue to punch the clock every day for meager pay. Most of all, work offers the opportunity to mentally escape from the pains of family separation, broken marriages, and the monotony that accompany decades-long sentences. Yeah, so I think a lot of people also say, well, it's their own choice whether they want to work for this. It's their own choice, made their own choice. Yeah, but for many of them, the choice was between sitting there staring at a wall, and I think just about anybody would like to not sit staring at a wall 24/7, or it was to be within the general population of prisons and perhaps end up in fights and other problems. And so to get out of those things and go work is the lesser evil, but that doesn't make it a choice. That's not a free choice. That's a choice with a lot of threat on the other side. Government officials and business leaders know that our desperation is real, and Unicor preys on this stigmatized population. I want to get down, though, to this key point. Since my release in April, I have listed the many jobs I held in prison on my resume, but my certifications as a flagger, a forklift driver, and others have proved incapable of outshining the glaring label of convicted felon that accompanies them on applications. To no avail, I have attempted to use my writing skills to dress up the fact that I was in prison when I held these positions. On the inside, this work served great purpose and generated great revenue for those corporations. I continue to be only offered menial labor positions for meager pay. So despite the fact that these people may have worked and become quite skilled at a lot of these jobs, when they get out, they're often not hireable in those jobs. Even if it's not illegal, like it was in California for many years, to hire them as firefighters, even in other states and things like that, where it's not that it's illegal, it's just the companies are like, why would we hire a convicted felon? No, fuck that. So the whole idea of, this is good training for the outside is bullshit in a lot of regards. And it's such a fucked up system, because we run around the world and talk about how other countries are violating human rights. We have a free country, the freedoms we enjoy that most countries don't enjoy. And here we are with fucking slave labor. Some of the investigations, now a lot of the brands I'm about to mention, they may have changed their ways after getting outed in some of these investigations. So I don't know how many of them it's currently like this. But some of the brands that used slave labor in prisons included at a time McDonald's, Victoria's Secret, and so many of these big brands that especially maybe clothing brands was a big one. AT&T, I think, for a while had some of their operators there. But these investigations would show that not only are a lot of these clothing say made in America, on the labels, but some of the clothing would be made in, China or somewhere, then get shipped to a prison where they would sew on the Made in America label. And that was their proof that it was made. They could say, oh, it was made in America because the label that said Made in America was sewn on by a slave laborer in U.S. prisons on U.S. territory. Made in America. Goddamn right, America. So there's a firsthand account of what it's like to be trapped in this slave labor situation that the United States acts like only exists in other countries. All right, let's move on to some other topics. But real quick, many of you know I'm one of the most censored comedians in America. I'm attacked regularly. Just last episode, I showed you the attack done against me by another mainstream media outlet, calling me one of the most biased outlets, when in fact I'm right constantly, and the mainstream media feeds you nothing but vomitous propaganda. And so, there's only certain ways that I can even keep this show or anything I do going. And one of those is for you guys to become members at, let's see, it should be on the screen, but I don't see it. Anyway, for you guys to become members at leecamp.locals.com. And just real quick, before I get to the next topic, and I have some big news stories coming up in this show, but real quick, what you get to become a member there, first of all, is $6 a month. So it's 38 cents an episode. And you get my new book, my new ebook, Dangerous Ideas. It just came out a few months ago. You get that for free. You get these live streams whenever you want. They don't disappear like they do on other platforms. You get plenty of exclusive content, such as video clips that a lot of people don't get. You also get Q&A with me, which today is another day that I'm going to run over to Locals and chat with them about anything they want to talk about after this live stream. So all of those things, and you're making sure that my show can continue, can sustain. And, if you just want to sign up for a month and then cancel because you didn't like it, do that. But give it a try. It really helps me be able to keep doing this despite all of the attacks that we're all going through. Okay, moving on. The announcements are getting more dire. And part of the reason I feel the need to cover this is because a lot of your mainstream media fucking won't. And if they do, it's a little blip on the radar. They'll give you a little 12-second blip about the most important news story facing all of us. And then they move on with how Trump had a funny photo. Good deal. The UN is announcing climate breakdown, where they're officially calling it climate breakdown after yet another record summer of heat. Scientists blame ever-warming human-caused climate change from the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas. And by the way, if anybody would like to try and claim that this is false or a scam or anything else, I got bad news for you. The number of peer-reviewed scientific articles that say man-made climate change is real is 99.7%. 99.7% of every peer-reviewed scientific study, report, article that has ever been put out or published says man-made climate change is real. So you'd have to say that this so-called scam has been coordinated with essentially every scientist, 99.7%, essentially every scientist around the world, just about every government around the world, because really there's Republicans in the United States, and by the way, the Democrats are equally awful, but you'll hear why I'm pinpointing Republicans. Republicans in the United States are just about the only large-scale political party in any country that still denies that climate change exists. Now, the Democrats are doing fucking nothing about it. So I'm not giving them a pass, which is almost worse. To understand it exists and do nothing about it is almost fucking worse. I'm not giving them any pass. I'm just saying this shit is... You'd have to assume that all of them work together. Every scientist around the world, with the exception of that 0.3%, which, by the way, that 0.3% or less than that really are very popular on YouTube shows. They found the one guy who's just like, it's not real. I don't know. So that is one hell of a conspiracy, my friends. Every scientist around the world, every government around the world, with the exception of the United States. Maybe there's one other. I don't know where they are. Maybe there's one other. And every large-scale political party, with the exception of Republicans, all saying this is happening. I'm not saying that a lot of these countries are doing shit about it. I'm just saying they acknowledge it's real. And all of that had to be coordinated. That would be a fucking, I would not want to be on that Zoom call to coordinate that. Climate breakdown has begun. The United Nations chief has warned, as the World Meteorological Organization reported that the world went through its hottest northern hemisphere summer on record. The WMO, citing data from European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, said on Wednesday that the last month was the hottest August on record by a large margin and the second hottest ever month after July 2023. August is estimated to have been about 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial average. It also saw the highest global monthly average sea surface temperature on record, nearly 21 degrees Celsius, 69.8 Fahrenheit. Scientists blame ever-warming human-caused climate change on the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas, with an extra push from a natural phenomenon, El Nino. So they're not saying El Nino isn't a factor. They're just saying it's El Nino's added an extra push to human-caused climate change. And let me just say also that, look, I get it. For those of you who want to pretend it's not happening or it's not real or whatever, I get why you feel that way. You're scared, and it makes you feel good to tell yourself this isn't real. And I get it. It's better, though, to face reality, to deal with the grief, to sit with it, and then to get active on changing this world. But yeah, I understand that it's scary, and some people just kind of go the childish route of like, it's not real, and then they cover their eyes and they hum a happy song to themselves. I get it. I get why you want to do that. And then you find the fucking lunatics on YouTube who will agree with you and are scared with you. And so they tell you it's not real. And then you go, yay, I feel better because that guy said that thing. But you should just know that you're going against 99.7% of every scientist in the world who has had a peer-reviewed article or study on this topic. And peer-reviewed is very key. Because, yes, big oil will buy out some scientists. And there are some scientists that have very official titles. And they will say, it's not happening, or it's not real, or the climate has always changed. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, the climate has always changed over millions of years. At the quickest, hundreds of thousands of years. Now we're doing it in like 12. So I get it that, that you want to believe those things. But in terms of peer-reviewed, in terms of actually going through the process of the scientific community looking at these studies, at these papers, and deciding whether they're accurate, you got 99.7%. All right. So, and here's another story on that front. Scientists are now warning that 1 billion people are on track to die from climate change in the next years. Fossil fuels that humanity burns today will be a death sentence for many lives tomorrow. A recent review of 180 articles on the human death rate of climate change has settled on a deeply distressing number. Over the next century or so, conservative estimates suggest 1 billion people could die from climate catastrophes. As with most prediction for the future, this one is based on several assumptions. One is a rough rule of thumb called the 1,000-ton rule. Under this framework, every 1,000 tons of carbon that humanity burns is said to indirectly condemn a future person to death. So yeah, they go through the ways they were able to calculate this. But the reason you don't actually hear more coverage about this story, and like I said, CNN or the other, fucking liberal outlets, they will cover it, but it's pretty light considering it's an existential fucking threat. You compare the coverage of climate change to the coverage of a million other things, Trump indictments, Ukraine war, Joe Biden saying this or that. It's nothing. It's borderline nothing. So the reason they're not really treating this like an existential threat is because they are funded by big oil, massively funded by big oil. Big oil owns our government. They own our media. BlackRock, which is the third largest owner of every media outlet you can think of, BlackRock and Vanguard, they have tons of money invested in fossil fuels and deforestation and other forms of climate crisis causing ventures. And they also own the media channels. So, of course, these media channels cannot and will not go after these things. But then beyond all that, you have the petrodollar. The U.S. power and energy comes from the dollar being the global reserve currency. And that is due to the fact that oil is mostly bought and sold in dollars. And, maybe BRICS will change that, but that's still the case right now. So the U.S. needs massive use of fossil fuel to continue, even though we're on the path to killing 1 billion people with climate change and to causing whole nations to go underwater. Like the Maldives, isn't that one of them that's going underwater? So, and, they're funded by the big banks, which are also heavily invested in all of these fossil fuel companies. So, yeah, that's why you're not going to hear this from our media. And you might hear little blips here and there again, but not a lot. And that's why I'm going to keep covering it. All right, I now want to get to exactly how our pro-war propaganda works, the language that allows our pro-war propaganda in this country to continue, even in segments and news stories that are not heavily pro-war. You even see the same terminology that is technically pro-war terminology. And I want to go through a bunch of that. This is coming from wordsaboutwar.org. So if you want to read through the full list, it's at wordsaboutwar.org. But before I get to that story real quick, I have more stand-up comedy events coming up. The last one was sold out. I am performing that hour one more time, and that will be it for that hour. That hour is called Not Enough Friends to Bury a Body, and it's a live Zoom event. So basically you are there, you're in the room with me for the live performance. It's not a video. This is not, these are $5 tickets, and they're not tickets to a video. It's not tickets to watch a movie. It's tickets to be in the Zoom event with me and watch me perform a brand new hour of live stand-up comedy. If we can figure out the tech, there will also be a special guest there. And because we had problems with that last time, but the hour still works great. Anyway, $5 tickets. It's at the top of my Twitter feed, twitter.com/Lee Camp. And it's also at leecamp.simpletix.com. And then I have another, that's coming up this Wednesday, by the way. This coming Wednesday. I have another hour, another brand new hour, separate from that one, called Fear of Death and Other Small Matters. That's October 14th and October 18th. And these could sell out. The last one sold out. So grab your tickets, $5, and come join me for these live Zoom events. We had a fucking great time at the last one, if I can say so myself. And for those of you who were at the last one, people said the laughter was a little too loud. So we're lowering the laughter on this next one, and we will not have the same problem. I'm putting the SimpleTix link into the chat there, leecamp.simpletix.com. grab your $5 tickets and come join me for it's actually once we include the special guests and everything, it's about an hour and a half long. Someone's asking when this is. So there's the Not Enough Friends to Bury a Body hour. Will be Wednesday, September 13th, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. London time. And then the next hour, October 14th and 18th, Fear of Death and Other Small Matters. So, but you can go to that link to find out when and everything is and all that stuff. All right. Let's keep it moving. Now, as I go through these, notice how often your mainstream media uses all of these terms. Notice how often your mainstream media, I don't care whether it's CNN, NPR, Fox News, any of them, uses these terms because they are subtly promoting war at every level. At every level. Even when it's not a story really about war, they're still promoting war. It's still a pro-war way of speaking about it. So these are euphemisms to avoid. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to jump around a little bit. But for example, when they say casualties, they've suffered this many casualties. They're saying people that were killed or wounded. And that's what we should use. We should call them killed or wounded. Yet the U.S. government has realized people are far more hesitant to support war when you talk about U.S. troops being killed and wounded. So instead, they say U.S. casualties. Or they say Ukrainian casualties. If it's a proxy war we so-called support, they try and lighten it that way. They don't say, here's how many U.S. troops have had their heads blown off because they don't want to scare people. Collateral damage. You should say civilian killing, civilian murders. That's what it is. And, one of these that's later in the list that I point to a lot is we call it the Defense Department or we call it the Pentagon. And I do that a lot too. I'll say the Pentagon too. But really what it is it's the world's largest machine for organized human murder. Literally is. Like, even if you support them, that doesn't change the fact that they are the world's largest ever, both in terms of sheer size, 800 or 900 military bases around the world, and in terms of amount of money dumped into it, $1 trillion a year. It is the largest machine of organized mass human murder that's ever existed. And that's what you should call it instead of the Pentagon. Say, hey, do you support sending more funding to the largest machine of mass human murder the world has ever seen? Rather than, do you want to send more money to the Pentagon? And it really changes the argument, doesn't it? Changes it. They point out here that the word drone has become a euphemism, a verb used to disguise extrajudicial killing. So they'll say someone was droned or was drone bombed, but really it's assassinated, it's killed, it's murdered by drone. But it's far more creepy to say they were murdered by drone than just to say they were droned or they were drone bombed. Intervention is another one. How often do you hear CNN talk about intervention, the U.S. intervention? Don't say intervention. Say war, say invasion, say attack. Probably invasion is the most accurate for most of these. But we hear them say intervention all the time, U.S. intervention. And by the way, even our Congress admits that there has been, this is by a congressional research study, there has been over 400 instances of U.S. intervention, meaning U.S. invasion, attack, war against 400 countries. Now, that is far more countries than there are because many of those are us going there twice, such as the 2 Iraq wars. But even Congress admits that. So while your mainstream media talks about how the U.S. is a peaceful country or a free country, or we're defending freedom, we have invaded or attacked 400 countries. We have been at war like over 90% of our existence as a country. And that's not even talking about economic war, which is used far more often nowadays. Neutralize is a euphemism for killing someone. Precision bombing is just bullshit. Every time you hear, I mean, some of this chart, it should just say the euphemism, and then next to it, it should just say bullshit. Because, like, there's no such thing as precision bombing. Not really. Yeah, you could drop a smaller bomb on an area that you think has a bad guy. You're still killing everyone around. Like, the other one is smart bombs. They love that. Oh, the U.S. used a smart bomb. Yeah, did it go through a window and kill a guy and then save his family who was standing around him? Fucking no. It took out the whole goddamn room, if not the building. But this shit, and it's funny to look at this next to the live stream I did Tuesday, where I was talking about the media bias chart, right? From Mediaite. And that media bias chart shows all of the news organizations that use all of these terms every day and are meant to be the least biased according to Mediaite. Here's the chart, and they decided to put me on the far left bottom, like I'm unreliable or something, which is hilarious. Anyway, you can go watch that episode if you want. But my point is just at the top of the chart. So the most reliable, the least biased is CNN, NBC, CBS, all the ones using all of this garbage terminology to manufacture consent for war every fucking day. Every day they're using these terms. Precision bombing, precision guided munitions. There's no such thing. The word defense is really military. There is no defense. It's all in the U.S. It's only aggression. It's only offense. So don't say defense. Say war or military. Now, I actually think they're going a little light here because, as I said a minute ago, but they say don't use the term defense budget, use the term Pentagon budget. But I really think you should say the budget for the largest machine of mass human murder that has ever existed. Say that. Say that. See if that changes some minds. More on the defense budget. Defense contractor is Pentagon contractors, weapons companies, military contractors. Anything with defense is bullshit. Secretary of Defense, it should really be just head of the largest machine for mass human murder. I know it's wordy. I know it doesn't just roll off the tongue, but oh well. Deal with it. If you want to have the largest machine of mass human murder the world has ever seen, you're going to have to say a few more words. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. Enemy non-combatant. Oh, yeah, that's a great one. They love to talk about that. In like Afghanistan and stuff. Well, there were some enemy non-combatants. They're fucking civilians is what they are. They're innocent civilians. They're not enemy non-combatants. That's not an enemy. It's a fucking dude herding goats. Enhanced interrogation is, of course, torture. Most of you know that one. Lethal aid is a term they use for weapons shipments. Sending guns is called lethal aid. Let's see, what else? A few more here. Well, they use the term terrorist or terrorism. Like you look at Afghanistan, they use the term terrorist for anybody that we're bombing is just a terrorist. They're by definition of us bombing, that makes them terrorists. But of course, that's not true. We just bomb the shit out of anyone that they started. The Pentagon actually admitted this. The machine for mass human murder actually admitted this back years ago, several years ago, a decade ago or something. They said that they were changing their definition of civilian in Afghanistan definition of combatant. So definition of the people they were allowed to bomb. And the answer was anyone of military age, any male of military age in a target area. And military age is like whatever they said, 16 or 18 or something. So basically, you blow up 15 children, you get to call them all combatants. Doesn't matter if they were. It doesn't matter if they were 16-year-olds sitting there playing with fucking sticks. It doesn't matter. They're, according to our military, they're combatants that we were allowed to bomb because they're of military age. So, all right, that is many of the terms in the words. So the site for this, if you want the site, is wordsaboutwar.org. It was put together by Dr. David Vine at American University, as well as many others who assisted him. And it shows how that propaganda works. Now, I would like to move to how our mainstream media manufactures consent for hating and harming immigrants. That's we're on a bit of a theme here. So I'll get to that story now. However, the rest of this live stream, and I have more stories coming up, the rest of this live stream is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. If you're already watching there, nothing changes, and it's completely free to go over there and watch. Rumble.com/Lee Camp. I hope to see you over there for the rest of this episode. Join me right now. And let's keep going. And of course, I hope everyone becomes a member at leecamp.locals.com.